Chandler Smith wants out, AJ Allmendinger might be headed back down to the Xfinity Series, and who's going to replace him on the Cup side? Kaulig Racing spent Sunday evening celebrating AJ Allmendinger's third career win, second for the team, at the Charlotte Roval. That didn't come without a little bit of silly season news, though, after the press conference on both the Xfinity side and the Cup side. Let's start with the Xfinity side because it's probably the little bit of a bigger story, and that would be Chandler Smith wants out of Kaulig Racing. He signed a 3-year deal with the team before the season, and now he wants out at season's end. If you can do the math, that means he has 2 years left on his deal, which would mean that somebody would have to buy out his contract. Where does Chandler Smith want to go? Well, he reportedly wants to head over to Joe Gibbs Racing and get back into that Toyota development pipeline that he was once a part of. He left that pipeline to join Kaulig Racing in hopes that he could find a Chevy Cup Series seat in the near future. All of those are spoken for, especially now with Legacy switching over to Toyota. And now he's looking at the Toyota pipeline saying, well, Denny Hamlin's going to retire in a couple of seasons. Martin Truex Jr. might only have 1 year left in him. And 2311 may expand sometime in the near future as well. So there's likely a better chance of landing a top-tier Cup ride in the Toyota camp. And now he wants to go back over there. The problem is, like I just said, he has 2 years left on his contract. So I've heard a couple of reasons to why he might be upset, and Chris Rice kind of threw a bit of shade at Chandler Smith and his agent in the press conference with AJ Allmendinger saying, I didn't think we could win. And that's definitely harking back to something that was likely said between Chandler Smith and Kaulig Racing where they couldn't win on a Cup side or whatever. So I've heard a couple of different things about Chandler Smith and his time at Kaulig so far. He's apparently upset that they did not pick him to replace AJ Allmendinger on the Cup side. Chandler Smith has this very inflated view of himself. The people around him talk him up like he's a Cup Series champion. He has one Xfinity win to his credit this season, which is a great win back at Richmond in the spring. The problem is he views himself as a guy that is a top-tier talent, and whether he is or not, that's up for debate. But he's upset that he didn't get that ride, so he's mad about that. I've also heard that potentially the money that he brings to the team isn't as good as it once was. He's definitely run into sponsorship issues in terms of payment with that sponsor Charge Me, which you haven't seen. It is ironic that a sponsor named Charge Me is having money issue problems, or at least paying the bills. So these are all things I've heard. Whether they're substantiated, I trust the people that told me, but we'll see what happens. Outside of that, Chandler Smith has had a okay Xfinity Series season. So far this season, he's had 7 top 5 finishes, 11 top 10 finishes, 1 win, an average finish of 14.9, and an average start of 19.9. And that right there, to me, is one of the biggest problems with his season so far. His start versus his finish is basically a complete 5-spot drop, and that's not ideal. You would love to see your start and your finish be in front of your start, obviously. And to have that be such a big gap back there, and granted, he does have multiple DNFs this season. He's only been on the lead lap of the race. He's been off the lead lap, I should say, at the finish 11 times this year. For Chandler Smith, his numbers don't exactly back up as a guy that should be in the Cup Series, or at least a guy that's going to have a great production level. He has 3 starts in the Cup Series this year for Kaulig Racing, 0 top 5s, 0 top 10s out of those as well. And maybe moving back over to the Toyota pipeline is exactly what he needs to sort of get his season and his career back on track. Either way, I don't think Chandler Smith is long for this Kaulig Racing world, and I think that they will eventually find a buyout to go with it. The problem here is I don't know if TRD wants Chandler Smith as bad as Chandler Smith wants to be as part of the TRD pipeline. Because TRD, as everybody knows, they have a great driver development pipeline all the way down the ladder. All the way down to kids that are just racing midgets, essentially. So they have Jesse Love in the pipeline. They have William Sawalich, which he's not really a TRD driver in the same way Sammy Smith isn't a TRD driver, where they're putting a ton of money behind him. He does have a lot of money behind him, but it's not coming from the OEM. It's instead coming from family or sponsorship or whatever. Jesse Love, though, on the other hand, does appear to be a guy that's going to move up that ladder. Same with Corey Heim, although we've heard some things about Corey Heim and Joe Gibbs Racing, which who knows if that deal is going to get done or what happens there in the future. But Toyota does have a pretty stout pipeline, so Chandler Smith is likely going to need his sponsors or his parents to buy his way out of Kaulig Racing. And I think they'll eventually come to a buyout deal because at the end of the day, if a guy doesn't want to be there, what's the point in having him? Onto the Cup side of things with AJ Allmendinger. After the race and after his win, the Kaulig Racing president Chris Rice and owner Matt Kaulig were asked, does this change your decisions? And they said that it's a pretty cut and dry decision. They've already made the decision. They're not ready to announce it yet, though. Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic reported that AJ Allmendinger will be replaced in the Cup Series next season. He will be moving back down to the Xfinity Series, and he will be replaced with Ty Dillon. And you're probably right now wondering, or saying rather, that is the most mid lineup ever. And you're right. The Kaulig Racing is on this ever-ending quest to put together the most mid Cup Series lineup because they try to be the Stewart-Haas Racing of NASCAR. It's really not good. But the reason Ty Dillon is going to get this right isn't because Ty Dillon's good. I mean, we can all look at his stats and see that this year has not been a banner year for Ty Dillon. 0 top 5, 0 top 10 finishes, doesn't even come close to sniffing a win. AJ Allmendinger, on the other hand, 3 top 5 finishes, 6 top 10s, and a win this season. What Ty Dillon does bring along, though, is money. He has sponsorship, he has backing from Ferris and a couple other small partners. That's more than AJ Allmendinger had, and then Kaulig can piecemeal the rest of it together, but they're not footing the entire bill. Matt Kaulig and Chris Rice talk about wanting to go trophy hunting all the time. Their Cup lineup for next year between Daniel Hemrick and Ty Dillon is not a trophy hunting lineup by any means, but both of those drivers do bring a decent enough budget with them that it has to happen for Kaulig Racing to stay afloat, essentially. Matt Kaulig's putting a ton of money into this program, of his own money, rather. They need to make this move, and they need to have these two guys come in. On the Xfinity side, you're likely going to see AJ Allmendinger in a car full-time. What happens with that Chandler Smith car? That's still up in the air there. They've run 3 cars this season. Obviously, that 10 car has been a bit of a all-star car after Landon Castle's funding fell apart before the season started. Who knows if they bring back a 3rd car next year? It doesn't really feel like they will. We've heard Noah Gragson's name linked to the team as well. They could bring back 3 cars. I feel like a 2-car operation is probably more likely with a 3rd car on a part-time basis, whether that's with Derek Kraus or Lane Riggs or whoever else. That definitely feels like what is going to happen on the Xfinity side for Kaulig. So AJ Allmendinger moving back down to the Xfinity Series, which is not bad. AJ Allmendinger is a really good race car driver, and in the right position in the Cup Series, he can contend for a championship. But down in the Xfinity Series, the Kaulig equipment is just good enough, and AJ's talented enough to maybe overdrive that equipment from time to time and get the most out of it, that he can contend for a championship there. And I think he'll have more fun. It's a few less weekends. It's on Saturdays. The races are shorter. He's going to be able to go out there and compete on ovals, which right now Kaulig is struggling in that aspect. AJ did say before this weekend at the Roval that he would like to stay in the Cup Series. So yeah, I think he's going to do whatever they ask him to do. He's a company guy over at Kaulig. But at the end of the day, I think he would love to be in that Cup Series still, especially now coming off a win going into next season. But that is the Kaulig Racing update for now. They got 2 charters. They got an Xfinity program that's really stout, but they got to start making moves soon within the next couple of seasons if they would like to stay relevant in this NASCAR world, or just become the Rick Ware of the Chevy camp, which would be unfortunate. So, like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram and Twitter at BreakHardBlog.